Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the mayor, Heath Shearon, and the host of this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for a way to improve your intake process in 2025, if you're looking to improve the prospect journey, the customer journey, anything that has to do with your customer experience, look no further than my friends over at Canopy Connect. They've been with me since the jump. I love what they're doing over there, and they're just continuing to evolve. They're so much more than just a one-click solution to getting the deck pages. You can get those deck pages, yes, but now they have a whole intake form process where you can create and customize the journey that you want them to have, and it can be customized to your agency with your agency brand colors, your logos, your everything. Go check it out. Use canopy.com/Heath. Get a discount for being a listener of the show and get your demos, all of that set up right then and there. And check out the old nasty video that I did that is so cringy right now, but go check it out. Also, guys, my friends over at Smart Choice, they are so much more than just a network to get markets. They could do so much more. They want to partner up with you to help you to become a better agency, more than just getting markets. They want to help you to maximize the revenue in your agency. 10,000 agencies across the country trust them. $11 billion in premiums, so carriers love them. They have a great portfolio of E&S markets and carriers and MGAs they work with. They're just a one-stop, help for you. So make sure you go check them out, smartchoiceagent.com. Tell them the mayor sent you. Also, last but not least, not too late to begin planning, if you haven't already, those 2025 campaigns, the email campaigns, the direct mail pieces, all of that. Call my friends at Old School Marketing, OLDE, schoolmarketing.com. Tell Rusty what you want to do, and he will take care of you from end to end, whether it's handwritten direct mail pieces, or if it's customized email campaigns, or just some digital help with your website, whatever it might be. Check them out. I'm going to slide out of the way here, ladies and gentlemen, so you can hear this wonderful conversation. What's going on, Teresa Kitchens?
Hey.
How's life?
Good. Life is good. We survived one holiday. We have two more left to go, and I'm thinking we're on the right side of the path. So we're doing really well.
That's right. I like it. It, man. The hair is looking strong. You got strong hair game today. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Some days are better than others, so we're grateful that today's a good one.
There you go. I love it. So just because you ruined this for me, because we already talked about this, and when you listen to podcasts, you don't like the whole banter back and forth. So we can skip all the banter here in a minute, even though that's my favorite.
No, I love the banter. No, I love the banter, like between humans. It's just sometimes I'm like, I've only got 15 minutes between me and the place I'm supposed to go, and I just want to dig into the content. So, but I love the banter. I just sometimes I just feel like I don't have time for it, but I love it. I do.
No, it's hard.
You know me. I'm super social. Yep. I'm always out there.
Right. It's hard because, you get to talk to the friends on your podcast and you're like, oh, let's just catch up and visit for a little bit. And then you forget, oh, we're recording. We got to actually give some content. So I totally get it. And I'm so glad that you've decided to join me, and we finally got to be able to do this, and you kind of saving me a little bit. I think you saw a post that I had out there that you're like, hey, I could come help you a little bit. But, it's one of those things I kind of ran out of my batch, and I was like, man, I got to have some help here. So I appreciate you saving me here.
No, I think that's really one of the challenging things about being a podcaster is the consistent conversation you need to have with people to create content. Sometimes I'm like, I just need a break. Like I need to focus on what I do for a living sometimes. Yeah. And in fact, right now I'm kind of on a break. I've done one or two every month here and there, but I haven't been doing as much as I should. But I am pre-recording starting January 1st, trying to give myself some of that girth forward because honestly, we get busy. We get things going on. We're at conferences, all the other stuff. And it gets to me a lot. But I think that's one of the most challenging things. To me, the conversations are easy. To me, it's the planning, it's the rolling out, it's the promotions, it's all the other stuff that go with it, and the getting the people on board that get to be a little bit more challenging, schedules and things like that.
100%. And for me, I get those updates from LinkedIn, like you haven't posted in a while, or increase your post impressions by posting today. I'm like, I post all the time. I'm like, man, I haven't posted in a while. I probably need to do that. Or
but
I'll
then
get
also,
the notifications.
Do you have posting pressure?
Yeah.
So not just frequency, but like I see these people's posts and they have these beautiful pictures and they're tagging like 23 people and they've got this like great message. It's very heartfelt. I'm like, Chica, I don't got time for that stuff. Like, oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah.
I'm like, who wrote this for you? I need something, but I want to be authentic. I want to come across as who I truly am.
Yep.
It's just sometimes I think I just don't have that kind of time. It's not that I don't have that type of investment. And then I'll do really well for like 3 weeks, right? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I don't do anything for like 2 months. And
100%.
yeah, no, I
And
struggle.
someone listening to this right now will have that same moment, like, oh, for the next couple of weeks, I'm really going to, and then they'll just kind of die off. And so it's kind
Yeah.
of like that gym membership in January. It runs out after like a month, and then
Yes.
it's like, oh, I'm fat again. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
get
and you
it.
show up and like everybody's on the gym and you got to wait like 30 minutes for that piece of equipment or
Yep.
there's like all the treadmills are done. But by literally January 20th, it's crickets at the gym. Me by
Oh
February
yeah.
1st, that the hanger honors are like February 10th, February 15th, but the 1st of March, 1st of February, 90% of the people are gone.
Oh yeah.
I just feel like that's such a great metaphor for life.
It is. And I would love to see some of these people's Facebook and LinkedIn posts the picture, like the 5 seconds before and the 5 seconds after that picture. I would love to see the chaos that was ensuing, or sit down, smile right, get your smile this, do this right, or the
Yeah.
fighting that goes on. And then they show this very perfect picture. And then right after, everybody just takes off. And I love live pictures when I can hold down the video and see what was going
Yes.
on right before and right after, especially with my son, because I'll have this gorgeous smile. I'm like, oh, that's great. He's so happy. And then I hold down the button, and right after he's back. Yes. Right back
Yeah.
to sulking and looking like, a teenager.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say that. I'm the same way. I love, authenticity and whatnot. And so far, I haven't really found anybody that's truly authentic online. They still want to post their highlight reel, so to speak.
Of course.
But,
Of course.
and I'm the
I
same way.
find that
I'm not
people
going
are
to lie.
either mopey dopey online or else they're really truly like over the top
Yeah.
fake almost. I mean, I either find some people find it like super authentic to be able to be mopey dopey, but then I'm like, there has to be
Sure.
balance. Life is balance, right? Like we can't always be mopey dopey. We can't always be angry and riotous. We cannot, and like, I just find that people have a kind of a theme about them. And I got to figure out if that theme is going to be consistent with what I want to see or what I want. But at the same point, we have to be able to bring authenticity, which to me is a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that a lot of people, back to what your first question was about that, posting pressure. I think people have that in their everyday life, or they have to use, Facebook is my space for just family stuff. And I post this, but it's only highlight reels. LinkedIn is all my business stuff, but
Yep.
they're only posting when they land a big account or when they went to this conference or
Mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm.
And I'm very guilty of that too. I'm telling you right now, I'm a hypocrite as I say that, because I do the same dang thing. But, one of these days I'll do better about it. But anywho, look at this banter we got. We're adding value and banter at the same damn time. I'm so
That's
happy.
multitasking. I love it.
It is, man. So everyone, I feel like, knows Teresa Kitchens, but for those who have lived under a rock that may not know, why don't you let's give a couple of minutes of who you are, why I invited you on, what brought you to today, and then we'll dive into some insurance content and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm super grateful to be able to be here. Number one, I love being on various podcasts and various conversations because one thing about podcasting is you never know who's going to be listening and who's going to get what from the conversation. I think just being authentic, getting yourself out there, and being real is going to touch more people than this pre-formatted stuff that we feel like we have to do for purposes. But a little bit about me. I opened up my insurance agency in 2003, did not have a license, had never been in insurance, never did anything in insurance. I was actually, my undergrad degree is elementary education. I taught fifth grade English and I stayed home with my kids for 9 years. Opened up the agency because my dad was with Allstate and the mold crisis hit Texas. So when the mold crisis hit Texas, he was like only 3 years into being an Allstate agent. And he said, I can't survive because we can't write anything. They're canceling stuff. I'm going to die. So he said he had a non-compete. I obviously did not. So he just said, hey, can you just go ahead and sign on the dotted line right here underneath the cluster? He goes, just go ahead and do it. I said, what are we doing? Like, I don't even, he goes, no. He said, my youngest at that point, Kaylee, was 3. And he was like, you can just do it during mom's day out hours. It's not a big deal. Drop her off at mom's day out at mom's day out. You can create an office, I'll take care of everything. He said, but you create it. He goes, I'll put money in the account to be able to get the office up and running. He said, sign on the dotted line for this cluster. And it's not a big deal. So then we did that, which is really funny to me that the cluster would even let me do that because I literally did not even have a license. And we get in there and I call my dad and they're like, you have to have E&O insurance. And I go, okay. we're going to do E&O. So I call my dad. I'm like, so where do I get E&O insurance? He goes, I don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know? He goes, Allstate does all that. I go, what are we doing here? Because we do not belong here. So it was really, really funny because at that point I realized I didn't realize completely how in over my head I was, but I was in over my head. We were dealing with leads, online leads. Back in the day, we had NetQuote and SureMe. They were very, very hot leads, very, very good leads, but he could not write a lot of them with Allstate. So he would fax them to me, and then I would call and I would try to sell them during mom's day out hours, right? Which is always way more than that. So I ended up building a little bit of the agency that way. About 6 to 8 months in, I said, all this paperwork, how do I know who to follow up with? And it was just chaos. And my dad was like, go find somebody and let's build something. And I said, what do you mean? He said, go find somebody technological who could go build us a system to be able to keep up with all this. Yeah. And I said, okay. So I connected with somebody at my church who was a software developer, and we opened up a company called Agency IQ, and we created one of the first completely insurance-based CRM systems that ever existed. This was from 2000 into 2003 through 2015. We had a great opportunity there, but the way it was built was not scalable. We couldn't grow it based on technology, and technology changed. Backbones changed the way that it worked. All of a sudden, you didn't have everything was kind of linked. So if one thing broke, everything behind it broke. Whereas then it went to kind of a home like a wheel where you have everything in a central spoke, but then you have all these independent pieces where if one goes down, the whole thing doesn't go down. So we needed to rebuild it in 2015. I had stepped back from the agency. My dad was running the agency, which we're going to say, I handed it off to him making around $10,000 a month revenue. When I took it back from him, it was making less than $1,000 a month. So the idea of him actually running the business was not necessarily that accurate, but we were really focused on the computer product. So in 2015, we decided to sell it off because they wanted so many $1 million to rebuild it. We did that. Unfortunately, that did not go as well as we had hoped. But then I re-engaged with the agency in 2016. And in 2016 through 2020, built it back up. About $250,000 in revenue. At that point, I started acquiring agencies and growing organically, as well as growing agencies. Now, today, we are a team of 8 team members throughout multiple sets of trauma. I don't know why I seem to be a trauma magnet, but I built my business to be able to be virtual for a lot of different reasons. I'm very public about the fact that both my children tried to commit suicide in 2013 and 2014. And with that, I had doctor's appointments, a child on a heart monitor. I had to be virtual. I didn't have an option. I did not have a staff at that point because I was coming out of the computer system, trying to go back into the insurance space. So I had to rebuild at that point on a more virtual concept. Obviously not as virtual as we are now, but at the same point, I could see that I had to have that freedom. I was a single mom with 2 kids in trauma, trying to get them through counseling, trying to be able to keep my feet above water. I had one business going through a sale type situation. And then I had another one that wasn't making any real revenue, and I needed to be able to figure that out. Simultaneously, I ended up going through a divorce with my second husband. So the concept of all of that was so much that I had to be able to drive towards a different business model. Otherwise, I wasn't going to survive as a human. Yeah. So we really went that direction, nutted down on that. We've been able to grow a beautiful business with an amazing culture. Our team is so accountable to each other and so appreciative of each other that I just sit back most days and I'm just so grateful. We definitely have our challenges, don't get me wrong, and I have no problem talking about those as well. But our team is so strong and so good that I couldn't even imagine that it would be any better in a physical office every day. I mean, I can imagine a little bit, but I also think that there would be things that would make it less wonderful as well. So I love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing. And that's a little snippet about me and my insurance journey.
Man, there's so much to unpack there. So
Again, we could go Joe Rogan and be here for 4 hours.
We could, I was about to say, we just talked about that off air, but those who are listening are like, all right, I'm turning this off now. No, I promise you, look at the end. It's not 4 hours. It's actually only some odd minutes.
We're not. And I talk fast, so we're good.
Yeah, me too. So for Southerners, we do talk kind of fast. So,
I do.
you brought up something I definitely want to get into. And so, because I think it's a subject that everyone listening deals with. And I think I'll go back, I guess, to put it in insurance terms to provide that content. I think our clients that call us bitching and moaning and crying about rates, crying about all those things, forget sometimes that we have a life outside of insurance, that we
Yeah.
deal with a lot of things. Our staff, our employees, the people that we're, working with every day, the carriers we represent, they forget sometimes, and we forget on the other side of that, they're humans. They're real people
Yeah.
dealing with real things, and I had the opportunity to work with and manage quite a few, younger folks. And sometimes, the ones that don't have kids, the ones that don't have a family, it's hard for me to realize they don't understand some of the things I'm dealing with. When I talk
True.
about when I get home, I don't get to just check out or clock out, so to speak. Now I go into dad mode. I go into husband mode. I go into
Yeah.
taking care of my mother-in-law mode, or my father-in-law, or my mother, and father at home, my brother, whatever. We all have lives outside of that. And so when you bring up trauma, and you bring up, and thank you so much for being so vulnerable about that and talking about, your children and the trauma that you went through with that, you're trying to run a business, run a family, run a household, and you've got this going on.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, what that, obviously that was a tough time. That's
Yeah.
a given. Obviously, you don't tell me about that, but it just, how in the world did you get through some of that? What did that mean to you? What can you say to the audience right now? I'm going to
Yeah.
give you a broad open lane here to drive all over the road on this one.
So I think everybody deals with things differently, right? And and unfortunately, like I said, I seem to be a magnet for trauma. And I mean, I try to avoid it at all costs. So, I mean, it's not, I don't think I'm a confrontational person. I don't go on out and I don't like beat people or anything, but at the same point, I found that my personality is whenever I take a personality test, and sometimes this ticks me off when people tell me this because it's not who I am now. But back in the day, I subscribed to the philosophy that I just wanted to be a mom. I just wanted to be somebody that like their husband went to work, provided. I wanted to have a job, but maybe on the side. I wanted to make sure I planned the best vacations, kept the house clean. I was there for everything for the kids. That was supposed to be my mission in life. That's what I wanted to do. I had no desire to run a business or be a primary
Right.
provider or any of those other things. That was never my goal. In fact, I was a little upset for a number of years, and I'll be very able to use the word upset for the concept of a very light representation of my feelings. I was angry for a lot of years that I really felt like I wanted my dad to step up into that leadership role, that I wanted him to be that leader in the agency. I did not want to be the person who was making the financial decisions. I wanted to create a spreadsheet, go to him and say, hey, what do you want to do? And we'll make sure we do it together. And I wanted a husband that would do the same thing. And now I have a very strong personality, but back in the day, I used to tell people all the time, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Whatever you want. However, I'm just here to serve. I'm just here to serve. And it's not that that was a bad way to do things. It's that then through life, I was put into different situations with people who did not want to be those leaders. So therefore, I ended up having to lead because of the fact that other people pretty much refused to. And I don't have a problem with that. That's their personality. That's where they're comfortable at. It's just, I did not understand. So when I went through this trauma in 2016 and all the different trauma pieces with it, and like I said, I've been through a couple of traumatic type situations, that when my second husband and I got married, we thought we were going to create the Brady Bunch. We wanted
Yeah,
to be able
been
to do
there.
this with our
Yeah.
children. Pardon me?
I said, we've been there before. My, Stacy and I, my second wife, we had the same thing. Oh, we're going to be the ideal, like,
Yes.
everyone, the model couple for a blended family and what this looks like. It's similar to what you're talking about. So yeah, Stacy and I could definitely, as you talk to her,
I
you'll
think that's
figure
a
that
pretty
out too.
normal thought. I know lots of
Yeah,
people who get married the second time and they think, oh, our kids are going to
I
grow
got
up and
this.
be these wonderful beacons for awesomeness. And they're going to like totally tout the whole Brady Bunch idea from now
Yeah,
until forever. And it's just not the way it's going to work. Right.
100%.
And well, I mean, for some people, maybe, but not for us. So we get in there. And my husband is a really, really strong person. And my second husband's a very, very strong person. He's very intelligent. He's very leadership driven. So he really came in with being the leader of the family. And so I was like, okay, that's great. Yay. Let's do whatever he says, whatever Marcus says. And the key was my children did not respond to that well. His children did not respond to me being this little mousy person. And it was very traumatic, just the relationship at that point. We came in very judgmental. We came in very hot and heavy. The other business was in the process of dissolving, the one that actually made the money at that point. And my husband, my second husband was like, you know, you need to get in there and you need to do the things that it takes to be able to turn this business around. But at the same point,
was your second husband Hulk Hogan?
Pretty much. You've met him. It's Marcus. We got remarried, just so everybody knows. Flash forward, we got remarried in 2018. Right. But he came in very like, yeah, Hulk Hogan. I mean, honestly, it's a really great description. He came in very like, oh, this is what we need to do. And I would tell him, let's chill out a little bit. He's like, you won't do what it takes. And here's the deal. His ideas and his knowledge were so good. Yeah. They were so spot on. But I didn't want to be that leader. And he overcompensated with strength that then put everybody into a really bad situation. Yeah. So we were in a bad situation for work because he had quit his job to come help me build the business. Because again, I did not have that foundation of business knowledge. And he was like, I'll help you. So we were going through this broke phase. And then on the other side of that, my children were like all over the place. Their dad decided to move to New Mexico, supposedly for 6 weeks, and never came back. He's a great guy, very much in part of their life. Just he was supposed to move back and he never has. But not bad. It's just, it's something for children to process, right? And so it's been very interesting. All of that kind of happened at once. Then, of course, we found out that we had to restructure the Agency IQ platform, and we didn't have the money to be able to do it. And then at that point, my daughter decided to take an entire bottle of Benadryl, and she was at Children's Hospital for 2 weeks. My son went through a breakup with his girlfriend. He was 20 at that time, 19, 20. And he decided to lock himself into a van and huff 52 cans of computer duster is what we got out of the van. And we got a call that he would not be alive when we got to the hospital and that he'd probably have brain damage and other issues. So we got there, he was in a medically induced coma, and we had to be able to do that. So coming out of all that, my husband just looked at me and said, we don't need to be together because this is not working. So with that, I moved into an apartment. We stayed married for about a little bit over a year. And then I still wasn't responding the way he wanted me to. And he was like, we've got to just cut ties somehow. So we did that. But in that process, I found, you talk about how I dealt with it, just one foot in front of the other. And I will never, ever forget is that when my daughter and I were going through counseling, she looked at me and she said, Mom, you're not the same person. I don't know who you are. And it made me realize I had abdicated so much of who I am that I was so inauthentic and I was so judgmental trying to get everybody to perform at a certain level that I was hurting the very people that I love the most. And I could not tolerate myself that way. So I dove into multiple books. There's a great book called Letting Go. There's multiple different books. I love John Demartini. He says to look back over your life and take one specific point of trauma and come up with 200 ways that benefited you, because it makes us see that trauma in a state of gratitude and take away the trauma. I went through all that, but I will tell you there was a great book by John Acuff. At that point, he worked for Dave Ramsey, and it's called Go From Average to Awesome. The book is really good, but the first section, he has a workbook at the very end of it, and it's looking at your fears in a very, very real and honest way and laughing at them and debunking them so they don't have the power over you. And I looked at my life, and I went through another workshop. I dove into self-improvement. And I went to a workshop, and the workshop gave us like big pieces of like the white butcher paper, right? And it said, men are, women are, money is, work is, and you had to fill in the blank with your first thing that came into your mind. And then you went and you talked to people in the workshop with this here, and they had to respond to you based on your words. So if I said men are mean, okay, men are not good leaders, then you would, if I was talking to you as a man, you go, Oh, well, da da da. Because I was putting that out in the world and people respond to that in the way that we put it out in the world. And it made me realize that my fears were my beliefs. And I was creating the situation for people to not be authentic. And because all I saw was through my filter. So with the John Acuff book, I wrote down, my children are weak. They need me. And I thought, why? Why are they weak? Why do they? What am I doing to make that happen? And I realized that I was such a helicopter mom in certain ways. And I thought men were supposed to be strong, but they weren't. And I realized that I was totally putting all that out there and I was creating everything I didn't want. I was 40 years
Right.
old, literally, I think I was 41. I was on my second divorce. I had two
Yeah.
kids that were in trauma, one now with one third of each kidney dead and a heart problem and um, some anxiety issues due to when he came out of everything. His anxiety was much higher than it was previously. Maybe he hid it better before. There's always that discussion. But we healed the family, but only because I had to step back from the family and love them as who they had been created to be and allow them to have their own journey. I had a therapist one time that said, do not take away their story because they have to have that story to be strong and you have to love them through it. So, taking those principles, I applied it to my business. I have to love my clients. I have to let them have their story. I have to let them have their journey. I have to let them be who they are and what they are. Same thing with my team members. I have to be able to love them. Now, I have to structure them. I have to get from them certain things because they work from me. But it doesn't mean I sit in judgment. It doesn't mean I'm mean. It doesn't mean I'm rude. And it doesn't mean that I build the business for me in a selfish way because this is their sustenance for their life. They spend 8, 9 hours a day with me. And to be able to take that principle, pour into my children, take it and pour it into my business, into my team, and then give myself the grace to even look at all my fears and realize I had actually accomplished everything at 41 I did not want in my life. I did not want to be divorced. I wanted good, strong, healthy children. I wanted a good, strong, healthy business. I wanted to be successful. And I found that it was my fears that kept me from every single one of those. So I actually every year go through that. Same thing. I usually do like a little mini retreat for like an afternoon at a library and ask myself, what are my fears this year? What do I need to step over? How is this identifying me? How can I step over it and get better? But it's a day by day thing. And I will tell you, there were days that I was like, screw this, I'm going to the bar. And I just could not handle it. I couldn't. But then
Well,
I came
there's
back, you shake it off and you try again tomorrow. There's no other
100%.
way to do it.
And there's so many people right now listening to this that feel the same way. They're at that place or they've been at that place where it's like, you know what, screw it. Like, I can't, this is not me. I'm going to sell
Yeah.
this thing tomorrow or I'm going to quit. You know, I'd rather be at home. I'd rather be doing this. Or they're already looking on LinkedIn right now, looking for other opportunities and they just
Yep.
want to give up. And, you know, sometimes that you need to do that and get out of a current situation. But for those that are just in that place where, you know, hopefully this has been, I know it has been for me, encouraging for you to just say, you know what, you know, dig in, you know, figure out what it is that you're putting out there, what those fears are, what's going on, and, you know, try to turn that ship around
Yeah.
and figure out what it is that's
And if
holding you
it's
back.
not, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But
Sure.
knowing yourself means you're not going to walk into another situation that's almost identical to that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you hear all the time that if people go through situations, they end up like back in the same situation they tried to leave earlier, right? But by knowing ourselves, we can choose something different. But by if we stay in the dark about ourselves, then we can't. It's honestly impossible. We
You
have to
have to,
physically listen and grow to make ourselves better at the end of the day.
100%. You have to bring that into the light. And as a Christian, you know, we talk about that a lot in our household, and we talk about that a lot in our, you know, our circle of friends or whatnot, of bringing whatever's in the dark into the light. And that way, you know, once you put that in the public eye, in the open, then there's nothing, you know, that can go wrong. Nothing that can go wrong, but it's easier to have things go right when you bring
Yeah.
that to the light. And so,
Yeah.
hey, that rhymed. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it's one of those things that, you know, I totally get it. And I think that those that are listening, bring that to the light, you know, talk to people about it,
Yeah.
be open about it, find a community, find your tribe, as we say in our household, find your tribe and, you know, do what you can to go through that. And again, or as Teresa talked about, have your own self retreats to go out and lock yourself in a library, go on a road trip, wherever you are,
Yep.
and for me, and probably you, it's sometimes too. I get the opportunity as I travel a lot. I'm in hotel rooms at night by myself. I don't like to go out and party
Yep.
till 3 a.m. anymore. I'm a lot older than that now, but I'll be in my hotel room at night instead of sitting there watching Netflix. I'll take that time for myself, whether it's
Yep.
me and guide, or me and myself and I, or pen and paper. Just, hey, what's going on? Kind of like you said, what are my goals this year? What's going on? What are my fears? What's holding me back? Where do I want to be in the next month or two? What do I be the next 5 or years, 7 years, whatever? Um, long term and short term wise. So I think the same thing for agency owners or CSRs listening, or underwriters listening, or
Yep.
agents, producers. It doesn't have to be just agency owners or leaders in an agency. I think a lot of times you have to sit down and think of that too.
Well, I think account managers and people in sales, or even, agency managers, right? We need to look at what keeps us from our next level of success. What keeps us
100%.
maybe from the next level of sales? Are we afraid of that larger account, right? Are we afraid of more networking? Are we afraid of knocking on doors? Are what are we afraid of? Why are we afraid of it? And how is that holding us back from maybe building the book of business or the agency or the structure that we really truly want? And I think honestly, that's one of the most valuable things we can do, whether or not it's as a leader or if it's somebody who is leading their own conversation in their own life, like in a sales or in an account management. What is it about this position that is holding me back from being able to do what I need to do? If it's a boss or a supervisor that isn't allowing us to be able to pursue those things, maybe we're coming to the table with ideas and they're saying, nope, 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 nope. Okay, well, then maybe you do need to make a change, right? But if it's that I'm not coming to the table and yet I'm super upset about blank, but I don't bring it up to anybody and I don't try to make it better, okay, then let's have that conversation. How can I help
Well,
you to be able to be better?
and that's the thing that so many people listening to this might, if we transition a little bit from, talking more high level agency ownership, talking to the CSR, the salespeople, the staff, so to speak, that are listening, you know, don't sit there on your hands and not say anything.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I could probably speak to, for 8 out of 10 bosses, so to speak, out there, or leaders in agencies. They want to hear from you.
Yeah.
If you sit down from C-suite or agency owner or manager or whatever and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't feel heard. I don't feel, whatever, validated, whatever the words might
Yep.
be. They're going to want to listen to you. They're going to want to know, because maybe they're on the flip side of that thinking, man, I'm about to sell this thing. I'm done. I need someone to step up. I need this. And you might be that answer, or they may not know it. They're be so focused on working on it and not in it that
Yep.
they don't recognize, oh, well, if, Jane's dealing with this, I imagine Bob and Billy and Tommy and, Susie,
Yep.
they're all dealing with the same thing. So again, bring that to the light, talk to your managers or your agency owners and say, hey, here's something I'm struggling with.
And I think it's really important to also recognize that if we want to be someone who is in leadership, if we want our voice heard, we have to actually use our voice. With so many people say they want their voice heard, but they never make that appointment with their boss to be able to say, hey, I have ideas. So then
Yes.
if we go to HR or whatever, we say, hey, I don't feel like my voice is heard. I would say, okay, give me examples of things that you've exercised your voice about that you were not heard with. Oh, well, I haven't felt like I had the freedom, so I never even tried. I've heard that so many times from different people. And the key is if we don't try, we cannot blame people for what we don't have. So, also, as an agency owner, I would say those are the people that I'm going to go, tick mark, you are in leadership mode. You are one of the people I'm
Yep.
going to pour into, because if you have the guts to come to me to make this business better, to make your position better, and to improve the relationship with our clients, heck, I'm your new bestie. We're going to make this happen. Whereas it's the people that sit in the back corner, gripe and complain and cry into their coffee. I'm like, honey, I don't have time to make you a human being that participates on the team. I'm here to rise up the people who are on this path with me, not the people who want to be in the caboose and cry their way through it, right? I want to be on the train with the people that are pouring in the coal. I want to be in there. I want to make it run. I
Yep.
want to make it run faster. I want to make it run more efficiently. I want to look at the blueprints of the train. I want to know where the cart is, where we can add joy for maybe libations or food. I don't want somebody in the back crying because it isn't the train they wanted. I get it. But here's the deal. Let's step up. Let's participate, because I can guarantee you they're going to have a better experience by saying something, and or we're going to exercise that muscle of communication, so that if we know that that's not the train we need to be on, now I know that it's time to go find a different train. Otherwise, we sit there in bondage and we cannot move forward. And no matter what the position is, I think that's a really, really strong conversation to bring to the table for anybody in an agency, just across the board.
100%. And, I'm a big advocate for, no matter where you are in the agency, whether, again, most agencies don't have this, but whether you're the janitor all the way up to the top
Yep.
C-suite level, like, your voice is important. What you have to say is, something that needs to be heard. And I'm a big advocate for that. I've been there. We've all probably
Yep.
been in that seats. We don't just wake up born as a, agency owner. It's one of those things, again, going through the trauma you've been through, and the places you've been at, from 10,000 down to one, or from, making it here down to having to sell it, or trauma. And it's just a lot. So, those people right now that are sitting in the seats of, maybe they're secretary or the, front desk person, tomorrow they could be C-suite, not necessarily tomorrow, but you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
never know.
Down the road, you never know.
And so I think it's those people you have to pour into as an agency owner, but also those people that are in those positions, you got to step up, you got to speak, and you got to let your voice be heard. And if you're not in that place, I think what Teresa, you're talking about, you've been through is, you poured into yourself. You found the self-help books, you found the workshops, you found those things. And sometimes people might say, well, that takes a lot of humility. That takes a lot of, swallowing your pride. It takes a lot of that. But yeah, it sure does. But in order to do that, you're going to come out on the other side pouring into yourself and feeling better and having, I would imagine the person you are today has a lot more self-confidence, self-reliance,
100%.
than they did prior to that.
I have some people that tell me I'm a strong personality now, and I am, and I will tell you that 100%. But I also think I'm much more real than I was before. And I think that I'm much more like, I listen and I ask better questions. I don't just make assumptions, and I don't go hide under a rock and go cry. And that's what I would do before. And I think that with self growth also comes self responsibility, that I'm not going back there. When my second husband came back to me after we divorced, and when he started me with paperwork, I told him, I said, I love you. I'm going to sign these, but she'll be back. Call me when you get your head out of your butt. That's pretty much what I said. He'll tell you the same thing. So he called me, and he was like, hey, I think I made a really big mistake. And I said, well, you might have, you might not have. I said, that's really for you to determine. And he said, can we talk? And so when we talked, I said, I'm not the same person anymore, and I'm not going back there. And if you're willing to move forward with me, not over me, not under, not around, but with me, then I don't have a problem reopening this conversation. But if we're going back there, I'm not going. It's not going to happen. And we've had a couple moments where I've had to literally say, stop, because we're not going back here again. And there are times that we've had to rehash things from the past. I'm not saying we don't talk about the past. We definitely do. But when we talked about it, sometimes we communicated in a different way, to where all of a sudden he heard, oh, I didn't think of it coming across that way. And he has really changed. I have really changed. I have stepped up, and he has also chilled out a little bit, right? And together we're a great team. And we got remarried in 2018. And it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. And honestly, my son and he were able to really reconnect. And the last Thanksgiving we had with my son in 2020, they were outside cooking a turkey, or deep frying a turkey, and my son came in, and he was with my husband's boys outside in the park, in the driveway, and he was like, Mom, he goes, I'm really glad you and Marcus really worked things out. He said, because I love him. He is amazing. And I was like, I'm so glad. And it was such a good moment. And unfortunately, we lost him in September 2021 due to a heart complication from his suicide attempt. But with that conversation, I knew that our family had come so full circle, that it was so good. But we allowed everybody to have their healing. We allowed everybody to have their time and their space. And I think even when we look at our team, we have to give our team time to come alongside us. We need to say, hey, this is where we're at, but I'm going to love you in that journey. I'm going to love you as you level up, as you take the education, maybe as you do some self-help things, right? Maybe as you read books, let's have these conversations. But you're there for them and you help them to see the beauty in who they are and in what they bring to the table, because that's where you're going to get your really, really strong people who are willing to have those conversations with you, and you can help them. They help you. I learn more from my team than I feel like I give to them because they are amazing. But we can't walk in and try to squash everybody and make everybody fit into this little mold because that's what everybody did back in 1892 in the insurance industry. It just shouldn't work that way.
Yeah. And, I love all of that. And again, there's so much to unpack, and I can't believe, again, I'm going to say it. Shit, I'm going to do it. But I look up and we're already at the end. So, my buddy Jim that reached out to me not too long ago was like, man, every episode you say that, but I got to, because I'm just shocked. But, my wife and I, we do a lot of things together. She's in the insurance industry. A lot of you know her that are listening to the show and heard me talk about her all the time. But, we walk side by side most everywhere we go together, and, metaphorically and physically. And physically speaking, I'm a big guy. And so if you've met me in person, I'm a big guy. And a lot of times we'll walk beside each other and I won't move. Like, people are coming towards us, I just won't, and I just have this arrogance about me, I guess, that I shouldn't. But, over the years, my wife is like, hey, sometimes you may just have to walk in front of me or behind me because people got to walk by. You can't just be rude, take up the whole sidewalk. And, I say all that to say, it's kind of been, the way I've looked at our marriage a lot of times. Like, she and I are walking hand. We're both leaders. We're both, strong personalities. As you get to know her more and more, you'll see she's, cut from a lot of the same cloth you are, dealing with trauma and leadership and the things like that. There's times though I have to go ahead, I walk ahead and I lead her in that way. And then there's times I step behind her and let her lead in certain situations. And it's the same thing in your business. There's sometimes you're running alongside your team and you're like, hey man, like you said earlier, if there's someone who's willing to step up, hey, you're in leadership mode, I'm gonna run beside you and help you. Then there's times you got to go behind them, but hey, you take initiative on this, you run with this, I'm going to back you up. And there's sometimes you got to step in the front and be like, hey bro, I love this, but I need to take lead on this and I need to shepherd you through this.
Yes.
So, that thing of her picking on me for years about having this arrogance about me being the Hulk Hogan and walking beside, like, no, I'm not going to move. They should walk around me. But there's times like, no, Heath, you've got to step in the front or behind. And, she still gets on me this day. I'm like, dude, just walk behind me for a minute or get in front of me, quit take up the whole sidewalk. But it's just become a metaphor for me as I talk to agency owners or as I talk to other married, other people, married and other couples in our church and whatnot. Sometimes you're in the front, sometimes you're walking right there hand in hand, right beside. And it sounds like you and your husband the second time around have figured that out a little bit. And I think that's amazing. And I'm definitely going to have to make you come back on again because I had this whole thing of getting into the virtual agency with you, but this was just way too important today for us not to. And again, I never planned podcast out. So I'm glad that God took us on this path and that you and I were able to have this conversation, from pre-recording, talking about bourbon and virtual agencies to post-record, now here we are talking about mindset and talking about leadership and talking about trauma and how to go through that because like it or not, we've all gone through it. We've all been there. There's not one person that could say besides JC, hey, I'm perfect. I've lived through my life, and never gone through anything, besides Jesus, nobody else can say that. So,
but I also think too, Heath, that we need to also understand our team goes through trauma and our team has those moments. And we as leaders need to give them the space to do that. It doesn't mean that they get to go again, crawl in the back of the bus or crawl in the back of the train and cry, but it does mean that we give them space to be able to do that. And I heard somebody once tell me statistically that everybody has a trauma every 18 months. And it might be that their car dies, and they've got like a massive car bill. Now they got to go out and it's going to change their financial situation, right? It might be that their kid gets sick. It might be that they get sick. It might be something major. I mean, I don't know, it might be divorce. You don't know. I mean, I'm not saying people need to get divorced every 18 months, but I'm saying people have a trauma every 18 months on average. And if we hold space for our team in love and in honor, they are going to be so much better team members than if we're just some dictator with some whip that we're cracking because we want them to be on board for some conversation that doesn't even actually exist in reality. And I love what you're saying. because these leadership things are not just about our family. They're not just about our business. They're also about our team. They're also about the people that have merged their lives for 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day into our time. We need to honor that. We need to honor that
100%.
journey that they're on.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because again, in this market that we're in, no matter what the market is, but right now, so many of your team members are getting yelled at. They're getting screamed at. My rates are going up. You suck. You did this to me, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's not their fault, but at the same time, they're dealing with that and they're compartmentalizing that as like, maybe it is my fault, it's only, they can only take so much of that. But then I talk to the team members that are listening. Your clients on the other end, there's a reason why they're yelling at you about the rates going up, and they're dealing with their own trauma, and maybe this is their 18 months where they're dealing with just that little bit of rate increase, or the milk prices going up, or gas prices going up, whatever it might be, just set them off at that moment. And sometimes you got to listen and just be there for them. But again, as going back to insurance, dealing with your team members, recognize, hey, I recognize you've been going through a lot. I've heard you the last couple of phone calls, or I've listened to the last couple. Take a couple hours off, go grab a massage, go get you a mani-pedi, go, sports game, go do whatever. I don't care. Go do whatever it is that you need to do.
Yep.
I think you're going to see your team respect that, and they're going to be able to and they might even say, no, I'm good. I'm okay. But at the same time, offer that, talk to them about it, be there for them.
Well, the fact that they're seen means a lot to them. So even if they say, no, I'm fine, don't worry about it. The fact that you see them and that you ask means a lot.
100%. And even if it's one of those things, I can remember, back in the agency days of just grabbing the CSR and just being, hey, let's grab lunch, let's go, do this, or, give them a gift card. Hey, go grab your husband, go grab your girlfriend, whatever, go to lunch, on me, I'll take the phones for a minute, or, I'll have someone cover your desk, just go. Like, no excuse. Like, they can't say no, just get out of here. Or go grab a Starbucks, get your pumpkin spice latte, whatever the heck it is, and sit down and just take a minute and breathe. And so many times, once they do it, they'll come back like, I'm so glad you made me do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I know, like, being a virtual agency, and I know this is not the same conversation, but I take 30 minutes once a week with half of my team members. So half of my team members one Tuesday, half of my team members the next Tuesday. And having that one-on-one, we're virtual, so we do it on Zoom, but it's a breakout room. It's not public. And I'm like, how are you doing? What is going on in your life? How can I help you? How can I help you to do your job better? How can I empower you? Is there anything that you privately need to talk to me about? And I take 30 minutes, and usually it turns into longer than that, but I try to take 30 minutes with each team member every other week. And just that space for them to be privately attended to has made a huge difference in our agency this year. So whether or not people are in person or not, like you mentioned, take your team member out for lunch, right? Like once a month, once a quarter, whatever. How are you? What are you doing? We learn so much, because sometimes people are very segmented in their personal and their professional lives. But when you just take them and listen, so many things make sense that may not make sense if you're just walking the door, blitz until 5 o'clock. Everybody walks out the door at 5 o'clock, and you don't even know what's going on in people's personal lives, or what they're dealing with even professionally with where you're at. Maybe you threw them into commercial and they don't understand this certain type of whatever. But if we don't have those conversations, they can't tell us what they need. And a lot of people just aren't strong enough to say, hey, I need to talk to you. We need to make space for them. And I think that's really, really important in this industry and the market right now.
Agreed completely. And, I'll give a quick shout out to, my dear friend and, former colleague and Kelly Donahue Piro. I remember, when I had the opportunity to work with her, some really good years for me, but I remember her pouring into me a lot and figuring out, what my hobbies, interests were and whatnot. And, it was one of those times in my life where I asked Stacy, what can I do? We had, just blended our family recently. And I was like, what can I do? What can I take off your plate? I know there's a lot going on. And she was like, if you could take over all the cooking, that would be great. I'd never cooked a thing in my life. I was like, yeah, I got
She was willing to eat it. I like it.
Yeah. And so, 8 years ago when we got, married, I took over all the cooking. It means all the grocery shopping, all the things that have to do with that. But I remember talking to Kelly about it. And so throughout my time there, she would buy me, Stacy and I went to cooking class together. She
Oh,
would
I
buy
love
me, she
it.
bought me an air fryer, because that was a big craze several years ago. And she would buy me, cookware and utensils and tools and grilling stuff and all this stuff. And at the time, I just thought, oh, she's being cool, whatever. But I realized now she heard me. It
Mhm.
had nothing to do with APP. It had nothing to do with my clients. It had nothing to do with anything but
Yep.
feeding my passion and feeding what I enjoyed and helping Stacy on the other end of that. And Stacy loved that, and it's like, man, here's a woman who gets it and taken care of. And I can remember, another team member of ours who was actually one of our virtual employees that, you know, she lived over the Philippines and she couldn't, she didn't have a car and she wanted to learn how to drive and wanted to do all these things. And,
Mhm.
Kelly was like, okay, let me help you get to that. It ended up getting to a place where she got her a car. It was one of those things of like, she got it, and I love, to be able to share that. I know Kelly'd be mad at me for, 'cause she's so humble about some of that. But at the same time, it's a boss who gets it. And you could be that same boss, and you may already be if you're listening. And staff members, you could be that staff to be able to say, hey, speak up and talk to your staff, your team
Yep.
members and your managers about that. But man, this conversation could go on for Rogan style, but I've got to shut it down. Because I love these conversations, but I also want to respect my audience's time, and I know
Yeah,
you get that.
absolutely.
But we're definitely gonna have to continue this off air and be able to connect on this because I didn't know some of those things about you, so I appreciate it, and that's why I love these things because here I am getting to know you right here on the air live, and so definitely
Yeah.
want to continue this. And I
And one
remember
thing
I
I
was
didn't
at a
bring up,
conference. I
pardon me?
remember it. I remember being at a conference with you when you found out about your son, and I remember
Yeah.
all of that. And so I didn't realize the backstory to that now, and so I remember praying for you through that. And I remember I'm assuming that's right. Yeah, you
Yeah,
had to
we were
lead a
brain share in
conference.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah, because I drove down there.
Yep.
It was a Sunday. I drove down there and we were down in the bar just, saying hello, talking to
Yeah.
people, whatever. And I remember I was in the elevator on the way up and I got a call
Yep.
and I was like, hey, it was from my son's phone. I said, hey, baby, I'm almost to my room. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? And it was a nurse calling to tell me that he
Yep.
had passed. And somebody was in the elevator with me and they said, I'm not leaving you alone right now.
Yep.
We're going to work through this together. And I just kept messaged Kelly because I was supposed to go to dinner with Kelly and the agency
Yep.
performance partner team. And I was like, hey girl, I can't make it. And she's like, oh no, we're really, going to miss you. And I said, yeah, this is what happened. And she was like, no, really, what's going on? I said, no, really, that's what's going on. And it was very crazy, but the insurance community came around me to such a degree. And I literally was up all day driving down to San Antonio because I live in Dallas, drove all the way back that night and was up for over 24 hours on that. But the insurance community just came around me and loved on me through that. And one thing I have brought up, but I do have a podcast called Power Women in Insurance. And it was very interesting because right before that, my husband and I had taken a little mini vacation and we'd gone to Oklahoma, Broken Bow, and we actually did a two-part series on our relationship and how we screwed it up in the beginning. And then we did a second part on what we did to be able to fix it and how we did
That's
that because
awesome.
I just felt like that was so important to have that conversation. And right before then in January, February before he passed, I actually did a episode of both my kids about what it was like to be raised by an entrepreneurial mom and the struggles and the challenges and then the mindset change and all that. And I haven't been able to go back and listen to it yet. It was funny at Thanksgiving, some people mentioned they had been back and they'd listened to it again. And I was like, I haven't been able to do that one yet. But I
Yeah.
think bringing these things to people's attention help us to know we're not alone. And it helps us to know that even when we look online, like we started this conversation on Facebook and everybody's got this rosy conversation of this great amount of triumph that they've experienced in one way or another. I think it's really important to talk about all the crap that went into it. I don't want to be on the negative Nelly side, but at the same point, I want to be really honest about that. And I love that that's what you're doing on your podcast. And I love that you're really pouring into the community with reality and honesty. And I think that for me is where this industry is supposed to go because we have to help lift the people behind us and
100%.
empower the people in front of us so that way we can be a part of that community. Otherwise, we're not a part of the community if we're not doing those things. We can be physically a part of the community, but remember, we're at the back of that train crying in the back caboose, right? That's not who we want to be. We want to be people lifting the people behind, enabling the people in front of us, or empowering. And then in the middle, we need to all kind of come together and just lift everybody else. Like they say, rising tides raises all ships, right?
100%.
And that's exactly what I think we're doing. And I thank you for this podcast and all the goodness that you put out there in the world, because it's so important, whatever it is that,
Dude,
people do.
I really appreciate it. And I'm so thankful for you. And I'm glad for our friendship. And I'm glad you're able to come on this show with me today and talk about such an important subject. And, you know, I love it so much. So thank you so much. And I got to shut this thing down. So thank you.
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.